Hey everyone, Dr. Lisa Marie here, and this is going to be a brief video. I'm going to continue on from earlier from the focus on finding your place of peace and guard it fiercely. Remember, these are coming from my journal, Radiant Reflections. You can get that on Amazon. And I just wanted to piggyback off of what I had been talking about. The scripture, Psalms 46 and 10, he says, "Be still and know that I am God." And then I also talked about John 14:27, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." Then it goes on to say, "Do not let your heart be troubled and do not be afraid." And so the reason I wanted to revisit this, because I'm getting a lot of calls and messages from parents um, about their children dealing with the weight of what has been going on in the political arena, concerned about what will happen. I even read an article today where the a child asked her dad, "Is the world going to end now?" And so I wanted to come back briefly and I wanted to talk about how do we talk to our children? How do we talk to our children about what's going on in the world? We have to be careful of saying, well, you don't need to worry about that. We have to be careful saying that, you're fine and you have nothing to worry about. Um, I was hearing some adults talk about when they were children and when they had concerns, and parents would say, "Well, this is grown people's business, and your kid, you don't have any concerns, just be a kid." But kids have emotions too. Kids struggle with what's going on in the world too, right? There's different talks about the the education system. There's different talks about um, kids being or families being deported. There's different talks about the economy. There's different talks about jobs. Children aren't oblivious to these conversations. And the thing is, they hear them, but they might not be able to comprehend all of what's being said. And so because of that, they create their own interpretation. And just as adults are struggling with a lot that's going on, so are our children. And so I want to encourage you, if you have children, grandchildren, give them a safe space to talk. Give them that safe space, just like I was telling or talking to you guys earlier about protecting your peace. We have to protect our children's peace. They're really struggling with all that's going on. And now just remember, not too long ago, they struggled with COVID. They struggled with having to go to school online. Then they struggled with transitioning back to school. And then there was some social issues, some academic issues. And now we add this. And so we have to be really aware of what our children are experiencing. And so I'm just going to keep going off of what I was talking about earlier, like I said. And just like I encourage you as adults to create a safe space for yourself, create a safe and calm space for your children. Establish a consistent routine for them. Give them that consistency in a world where even we are like, we don't know what will happen next. Even in a place where we're unsure, there's chaos. Our children are not, and our teens are no different. And so give them some consistency, whatever that looks like for you and your family. Having some routines that are predictable. Having some time after school where you guys just televisions, electronics off, and there's just time to have a beautiful dialogue. Encourage them to communicate openly with you. That no concern is a silly concern. No thought is a silly thought. Every thought, every concern they have, they can bring to the table and communicate it. Let them know, your children and your teens, let them know that it's okay to talk to you without judgment. Remember, I always say no stigma, but I'm saying without judgment. Make it clear that their thoughts are real. Their feelings and their emotions are real. Validate them. Let them feel heard. Let them speak and express themselves the best way they know how. If it's children, let them draw pictures, even teens. Throw some crayons and some coloring books and some paper out there and just have a dialogue because it can be difficult. We know as adults, it's difficult to just talk about things. We know that sometimes we have to get into a place of comfort and trust to talk about our emotions. And so think about our children. Just if you do games, do game night, do something where they can feel comfortable, and then broach the conversation. Ask them how they feel. Ask about their thoughts. Ask them about what they've heard, and then let them share with you. Help them to feel safe expressing how they're feeling. And then model that peaceful behavior that we talked about. They're watching us. And if we are really worked up and anxious or sad, they're watching us. And so let's model that behavior. But let's also be honest. And let's tell them that it's difficult for you and I and everyone else too. Share those things. Share how you're feeling. Share your thoughts. And let them know that together you all and we all are going to get through it. That we're going to stick together, stand together no matter what, and we're going to get through this thing. And remember, I talked about the scripture. Use scripture. Talk to them about the word. Show them how to meditate on it. Maybe do it as a family. Explain those scriptures. Help them to memorize those scriptures. And maybe they write them down. Maybe you guys come together first thing in the morning and you pray and you share the scripture. Whatever plan or routine that you have, help your children, help our children through this. It's such a difficult thing. I remember during the George Floyd um, things that we were going through. There was another incident, not too much was known about it, but some young boys were at a store and they had gotten stopped by the police. And my grandson had told me about it. This is the opportunity to have that conversation. And so I began to ask him, what were your thoughts on that? How did you feel about that? And he was comfortable enough to share that it made him worried. It made him fearful that if he went to the store to purchase something, that maybe he would get stopped. And so we had this conversation, we had this dialogue so that they know that it's okay to talk. I have done the same thing with my children who are now adults, and my son does it with his children. But we have to make sure we're including our children in the conversation because they're experiencing things just as we are. Whether you're for the president-elect or whether you're not, whether you were for the other individual or not, there's feelings, there's thoughts, there's emotions that our children are feeling as well. And we cannot neglect our children in this. We cannot say that they'll be okay. I hear people say children are resilient. And it sometimes it makes me cringe because the children of today are the adults of tomorrow that I see in my office. And they're dealing with issues that impacted them as children, but they did not have the words or the space to share what was going on. Give them that space so that they can share those words. Encourage them to express themselves. Encourage them to identify their feelings. Teach them how to recognize and name their emotions. Maybe you can get a feeling chart. You can pull those off of online to say, how are you feeling? And it has these different faces for the younger children. There's emotion wheels for older children and adults to help them articulate what they're feeling. Normalize talking about feelings. Boys cry. It's okay. I hear so much that boys don't cry, but boys cry. They have the same emotions and feelings that we have. They've just been taught that they are not supposed to use them. And so I'm encouraging you, help your children, your teens, normalize their emotions and their feelings. Teach them how to calm, self-soothe. Maybe it's deep breathing. Maybe it's doing a form of exercise. Maybe it's counting backwards or imagining that place of peace. Earlier, I talked about in deep breathing. Sometimes it's difficult when you're feeling anxious and you're saying breathe. But one of the things I do, a couple of the things that I do is I tell people, you remember the dandelion when you were younger and you would blow it and all the white particles would fly away. Or think about a scripture. How does that scripture look in my head when it talks about peace? What would peace look like for me? I mentioned maybe it's me sitting on a beach with the water just flowing and the smell of the salt water. That's peace. And once I get that image, once your child gets whatever that image is for them, then encourage them to breathe, breathe. Keep your image and breathe. This can help them to relax. This can help us to relax. Discuss those things that make them stress, those triggers. Maybe it's hearing the news. Maybe it's hearing people talk about the news and politics. Discuss those things with the children, with the teens. Maybe it's talking about it in school. It might be overwhelming. It might be a lot. It might be too much. Explain and discuss physical signs of stress. Ask them, what is your body saying when you feel like this? Do they have sweaty palms? Is their heart beating really fast? Do they feel like they have a stomach ache? Do they feel really tense? Ask them about these things. Encourage them to have a healthy outlet. Maybe it's you as a family walking. Maybe it's you as a family playing a game. Maybe it's you guys doing something that he or she can release that anxious energy. Encourage them also to set boundaries on social media. Please. Social media has been being bombarded with all kinds of things. Encourage them to set some boundaries, even with their friends. Now it's time for them to find their place of peace. and encourage them like, this is what we're doing. I'm working on my peace, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same so that we can all be together in this peaceful place as we navigate whatever is going on right now. And then limit their exposure to negative content. Do they have to hear the news on all the time? Do they have to have hear those conversations all the time? Limit the negative content because it's a lot for us, right? That's a lot for us. So imagine what our children are going through. And then, excuse me, and then set technology free time. Oh my goodness, I know. What do you do if there's no cell phones or tablets? Create a family time. Create a time where all electronics are off. And yes, they might come kicking and screaming because we're so used to them. But right now, with all that's going on, we have to protect our children's peace. Just like we are protecting our peace, we have to protect our children's peace. And not only do we have to protect it, we have to show them how to protect it. We have to show them how to shut things off and to set boundaries and notice what's going on in their bodies and notice what's going on in their thoughts and learn how to navigate all that's going on with you by their side. Set a time to pray together. Set a time to converse together. Get them a journal, right? If I have Radiant Reflections journal. It's good for teens as well. Let them begin to write down their thoughts. Let them begin to express their feelings and their emotions. Allow them to reflect on what's going on with me, and then foster a place of strength. Encourage them and give them credit and praise them for what they're doing. Let them know that you're proud of them for sharing their emotions and their feelings. Show them how to have self-compassion for themselves. Let them know and show them how important protecting their peace is. And celebrate them for every step that they make. Okay? And so in all of that, I just thank you. I wanted to come on and do this brief one today just to follow up on what we did earlier because it's so necessary to include our children and our teens in the conversation. We don't want to neglect them and then learn that they were struggling and we didn't do anything. And even in our midst of our own thoughts and concerns that we're experiencing, we have to bring our children along. We all have to be okay. We all have to make sure that we're not by ourselves. If we're building a community of support for us, then there has to be a community of support for our children. And so today, I encourage you, talk to your children, begin that dialogue, hear their voices, hear their concerns. No stigma.